After last week, the second leg of the Champions League quarterfinals couldn't come fast enough. A couple of crazy people hypothesized that there wasn't going to be too much action this time around and we were all going to be subjected to boring draws. Those people are all stupid and wrong. Xavi lost his cool, Araujo lost his composure, Atletico lost their heads, then put themselves together, then lost it all again. Dortmund came from this group and somehow made their way to the semi-finals. Real Madrid's Champions League black magic abandoned them last year, but it's made its return. And Arsenal have had the worst week of the season. But they aren't the only ones disappointed. It's been a pretty bad week for English clubs overall. We're here for another Champions League review. Hello everyone, hope we're all doing well. I'm Tinashe, welcome back to the channel. Honestly, I don't think we could have asked for a better set of matches in this round. Every team was pretty much evenly matched throughout the vast majority of the contests, and it was just chess throughout the pitch. But at the same time, when things went wrong, they went very wrong. On that note, a good place for us to kick this one off is the Stadio Olimpico, Barcelona vs PSG. Because of how City, Madrid and Bayern Arsenal went last week, personally, I don't think I gave the PSG-Barcelona match as much credit as it deserved for being as good as it was. So the anticipation was pretty real for me coming into the second leg, particularly because of how both of these teams have habits of falling short in quarterfinal stages, against each other too. Barcelona's fans were rooting against their own players from the very start, as they were seen pelting the team bus in the midst of a ton of flares as they arrived at the game. At the same time, the visibility here looked pretty insane, so I get how they could have confused the Barca team bus with the PSG team bus, but that really begs the question at the end of the day, why are they throwing anything at anyone? I'd hate to be the bus driver. Confusion was on the cards for a lot of Barcelona fans, as it seemed. Fans were recorded singing "Die Vinicius Die" before the match. My brothers in Christ, your opposition is French and Vinicius is in Manchester. Strange. All the same, putting that all aside, Barcelona came into this match with some incredible form on their back. Ever since Xavi announced his departure from Barca in late January, they have not lost a single match. They unlocked the leaving manager buff, which is kind of like the player that's on the last few months of his contract buff, otherwise known as the Anthony Martial effect. They had the advantage from the first leg too. It was all set up for a fairy tale ending to his tenure, criticized to no end by fans and media, and then sticking the biggest trophy of them all in their faces. I think we all knew deep down that this wasn't gonna happen though. Luis Enrique had something up his sleeve. Pressure. From the very first kick of the ball, PSG were all over Barcelona. They did really well to recover whenever they lost the ball, and they stretched it really well across the pitch. The return of Achraf Hakimi certainly helped with that. Barca were forced into a low block from the early minutes, but when they broke free, they essentially scored with their very first attempt. Who else but Rafinha with the goal? To be fair, I don't think he knew too much about it, but it came off him, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. This was good. All Barca really needed to do was stay resolute in defense and it would be smooth sailing. Never mind. Just like some of the fans, Ronald Araujo was a little bit confused too. 2 up in a Champions League quarterfinal, and he decides to bring down an attacker as the last man in a last-ditch effort. To be fair to him, Barcola's touch to get behind him was remarkable. So there's that. Araujo was a contender for man of the match in the first leg, but when it came to the second one, it seems like he just wasn't really up for it. 29 minutes gone, ejected from the field of play. And as if there were script writers for this very game, Ousmane Dembele dealt the first blow to Barcelona just before halftime. Another fantastic finish. After the break, Vitinha was given 5 business days to set up his shot before drawing the tie level. I guess it was at this point that Xavi decided that it was bedtime or something. Maybe he felt Araujo needed some company in the tunnel. I don't know. Red card. I know this guy is passionate on the touchline, but this is just outrageous at this point. He gets really animated, and this season alone he's already got a couple of red cards as a coach. The real kicker is that he only got 2 red cards as a player over his entire 2 decades of playing. The advantage was truly in PSG's favor. The second leg meltdown. It's a hallmark of Barcelona in the Champions League. As with the first leg, Kylian Mbappe didn't really have the best start to this match. He was getting double teamed across the pitch, triple teamed at times, but we should all know better than to count this guy out at any point, because by the time the game was over, he had 2 goals. First came a pen, never any doubt. Then the ball just dropped to his feet. You can't make this stuff up. It was honestly like it was fated to happen or something. He's already endeared himself to the Madrid faithful with these goals, and he was wearing white here too. The broadcast I was watching kept panning to Nasser Al-Khelaifi for some reason. Well, not for some reason, he's the PSG chairman. But regardless, he didn't really look like he cared. He could not give a toss at all, even when his team was dominating. İlkay Gundogan looked confused that no one on his team could clutch the win. He's not used to this. A catastrophe, I tell you. Overall, this was a great matchup. Both teams won away from home, which was really good to see. Some great entertainment value, and I don't think they would have played like this if there was an away goals rule, as we keep saying. It was a stark contrast though with Dortmund versus Atletico, where both teams lost away from home. Dortmund received some good news over the weekend that Bayern were toppled at the summit of the Bundesliga. Sure, it should have been them last season, and sure, they could have done better in the Bundesliga this season, but it's nice to see, I'm sure. It's kind of like leading someone to a treasure that you yourself can't have. They really did need to make a fast start to this one to counteract the slow start that they had to life in last week's game, and they really did. Unfortunately for Atletico, they have a reputation for not playing too well away from home, and they kind of lived up to that reputation in this match, because by halftime, they were losing the battle. Alvaro Morata wound back the clock to the Chelsea days with a point-blank miss in the opening minutes. Meanwhile, Atletico's right side was getting dismantled. Molina had no answers for Karim Adeyemi and Ian Maatsen. Julian Brandt made sure he didn't miss this time and opened the scoring, but only after Mats Hummels delivered probably the best pass of the game. His contract is about to be up at the end of the season, and it looks like he's on the brink of retirement. It's going to be a real shame to see him go, particularly as a Dortmund fan. Ian Maatsen came up with a striker's finish. I hear Todd Bowley was seen outside the Signal Iduna asking how much Maatsen cost and if he would like to sign a contract into his 30s. Nobody had the heart to tell him though. Mikhailo Mudryk and Enzo Fernandez didn't see anything wrong with the suggestion. Because I'm silly, I thought the game was over at halftime and focused solely on the PSG match, only to do a double take like only a couple minutes after halftime. You know, it had to be fortune that worked in favor of Atletico. A Mats Hummels deflected own goal right after the break and a flurry of rebounds that led Angel Correa to putting the travelling side up on aggregate once again. Bear in mind that while all this was happening, Mbappe was knocking in a penalty in the other game, so the hype was unreal in my household. And this match probably had to be the pick of the bunch. There was just so much back and forth, you couldn't really predict what was going to happen at the end. Only for Nicholas Füllkrug to swing the pendulum once again, only 6 minutes later. A calculated Sabitzer cross that paid great dividends. And that man Sabitzer came up with the goods himself 3 minutes later. In all the chaos that ensued from the equalizer, he rose above and rifled it into the bottom right. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. A proper turnaround. I think Dortmund could have extended the lead before the end of the match if they really wanted to, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter because they didn't need to. Now, I actually might be going to Dortmund in a couple of weeks, so it'd be great to visit that stadium, but that atmosphere over there, it looked real. Looked like a real vibe. Ladies and gentlemen, Jadon Sancho is in a Champions League semi-final. Somewhere in Manchester, Erik ten Hag is fuming. Manchester City vs Real Madrid has felt like a final across these two legs. I think there was a feeling amongst most people that watched the UCL that whoever won this match was going to go on to win the whole thing. Man, can you blame people? I'm just happy we got 2 games out of it. Real Madrid will likely win the La Liga title this season, and with Liverpool and Arsenal slipping in both of their weekend matches, it looks like Man City are on track too. All the same, I saw a kid in the crowd with Phil Foden's haircut for this match, and I kind of knew it was all over from then on. Jude Bellingham was quiet last week, and there was quite a lot of criticism on him before the match. People have been berating him for dropping off in the crazy goal-scoring form that he showed at the beginning of the season, as if he was expected to score that many goals and have that kind of impact in the first place. It's all gravy at this point for him. Nonetheless, he's a competitor, so he came into this one with a point to prove. Right off the bat, getting forward with the 2 Brazilians whenever there was an attack. But there were some big problems for them with Kyle Walker returning to the starting lineup. Vinny Jr. and Rodrigo both looked at the team sheet and started punching air before. It's like we've all been saying for years, he's legitimately the equalizer when it comes to speedy, tricky wingers. Nobody could get past him, which is probably why Madrid's goal came from the right-hand side. A drive by Vinicius, a missed kick by Rodrigo, and then a more clean strike once Edison realized that he was probably a bit hard on him for the first save and gave him a second chance. We probably all could have predicted that there would be Rodrigo. I saw a stat that said that Vinicius Jr. now has the same amount of assists as Lionel Messi in the Champions League, which is a stat that blew my mind and is kind of weird to think about. And then I thought about the fact that he's going to be assisting Kylian Mbappe from next season onwards, so Sometimes life isn't fair. Again, Antonio Rudiger had really full pockets by the end of the match. But seriously, him and Nacho did a really good job of holding up Erling Haaland in this game. They were getting really tight because they obviously could never beat him in a foot race, and at least the referee had some good sense to not call for fouls when Haaland was trying to buy them. And on that note, the real star of the game was Real Madrid's defensive organization. We all know that they're not used to being pressed the way they get pressed against Manchester City whenever they play against them, but this time, they really humbled themselves and decided to lock in. It's what you call maturity, I guess. City had 17 corners before Madrid even had one. Fede Valverde was running like Kante reborn for the entire game. Lunin was pretty active. However, as soon as Jeremy Doku came on, Man City had the advantage. A tricky winger like that, against tired legs, Danny Carvajal must have been happy to see Grealish come off until he saw Doku on the pitch. There was clearly an instruction by Pep towards those Man City players to just feed Doku and let him cook, and that's exactly what he did. He was just fizzing balls across the line, hoping something would come of it, because we knew something would. A couple of rebounds and the ball falls at the feet of one of the worst people that it possibly could. Kevin De Bruyne made quick work of it to make the game 1-1. But overall, Carvajal did all that he could against the pair of Doku and Grealish, literally, because he walked off the pitch with cramp in both legs. I was surprised that only one of these quarterfinal matchups went till extra time, but if any of them was going to do it, it was gonna be this match, wasn't it? By the end of it, it looked like torture. You can't play with that kind of intensity for 120 minutes and not really feel it. Those players must be dying today. Lots of jogging, lots of walking around. It was tough stuff. And even the penalty shootout had everything. Modric, of all people, missing the mark. Kepa telling Lunin that Bernardo will shoot straight. Kovacic being an undercover agent. And Antonio Rudiger sending Madrid through. Although, I will say, the mind games of putting Ederson as the fifth taker for City are out of this world. Whoever's decision that was, if Ederson stepped up or if someone volunteered him, I don't know. It was a masterclass because he kept them in that shootout. And that was a striker's finish, that penalty. It seems to me that City could use some help with penalties. It's been a rough week for both Arsenal and Bayern Munich. Both of them have watched on as the teams they're up against in their own domestic leagues have surpassed them. In the case of Bayern, it's a feeling of unfamiliar defeat. In the case of Arsenal, it's a feeling they know all too well. Listen, they're only 2 points off the top in the Premier League with 5 games left to play. Not exactly an all hope lost kind of situation, but we all know what this Manchester City side is capable of in the final stretch. Also, now they don't have a Champions League to worry about, so there's that. Anyway, it's a story for another day. Arsenal had slightly more of the ball earlier on, but it was Bayern Munich that was looking the more dangerous of the two from the beginning. They had more bite than Arsenal overall, but that's not to say that Arsenal played badly. I don't think that they did. They just didn't take that many risks, which is understandable. All the while, Bayern grew and grew into the match to the point where every time they went forward, there was real fear. And they went forward quite a bit, forcing Raya into some very uncomfortable situations, cracking the outright on a couple occasions too. To me, Martin Ødegaard was the only Arsenal player that seemed to offer real threat, and he was half injured based on the match versus Villa. I also thought Martinelli could have done a lot better with the chances that he got. There was one chance where the ball was pretty much running towards him, he was alone in the box, and he went with it with his left foot instead of his right foot. I don't know. Kimmich arrived late in the box to keep Thomas Tuchel in the hunt for his second Champions League trophy. And when the goal went in, it didn't surprise anybody. Bayern were knocking for a long time and Arsenal weren't paying attention. To be fair though, Kimmich ghosts into the box there really well, making it really hard to track him. So Arsenal's defense was just not communicating with each other at all. Last week, Gabriel picked the ball up. This week, there was a point where he passes the ball back to Raya without looking, and it almost ends up in the back of his own net. It really is sad boy hours for Arsenal right now. I remember back in the Arsene Wenger days, there was a point kind of every season when they were in contention for the league up until, let's say, about Christmas or so. Most leagues, at least, most seasons. And then there was a point around March, April where they would get knocked out of the Champions League, the FA Cup, they would lose 3 games on the bounce in the Premier League and get knocked out of contention for that title. And man, is this that week? Just the 2024 version? Look, they aren't out of the Premier League just yet. There's still a lot to play for, but still. It's been a tough week. On the other hand, the week has progressively gotten better for Bayern Munich. Tuchel should be pleased with his team's performance here because they really needed this. I must admit that I was one of those people that just assumed that Arsenal would roll over Bayern Munich with relative ease here, and Yeah, I'll admit, that's probably Premier League bias. I should have realized what was actually going on though. There's been a lot of Bukayo Saka slander since full time, and fair enough, this was one of his worst performances in some time, but it's what happens when you play pretty much every match with no rest, I guess. Germany have pretty much secured that 5th Champions League spot for next year with every English club falling out. Life is tough. You know, when I really think about it, it all makes sense. Leverkusen wrap up the league early so Bayern Munich and Dortmund can go out and finish the business and secure the bag for the entire country. All part of the plan. But now with all the real Farmers Leagues out of contention, we've got PSG versus Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid. If you'd given me all these 4 teams and asked me to put a matchup between them for my preference, this is how I would put it. This is exactly it. We've got 2 Bayern vs Real Madrid matches, and at least one of PSG and Borussia Dortmund are going to be in the final. A Madrid vs PSG final is the Mbappe derby. A Bayern vs Dortmund final is just unthinkable. Can you imagine if Bayern were to lose the league to Leverkusen and then the UCL to Dortmund? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. PSG vs Bayern is our lockdown rematch, and Madrid vs Dortmund is the Nuri Sahin derby. I couldn't think of a joke and I needed to post this video today. And there we have it. Let me know what you guys thought about these Champions League draws. These quarterfinals were unbelievable, and I'm hoping we see the same in the Champions League semifinals. Anyway, that's all for me today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you're having a great day. Cheers, and I will catch you in the next one.